Sotah Daf Membeis finishes the 7th parak of the Masechta with a discussion about the midah of flattery, and then begins the 8th parak, which starts with the Mishnah talking about the Mashiach Muhammad, the speech that was made to soldiers before they went off to war, the fact that it had to be in Hebrew, and the Gemara will speak more or less about that and other agadata. So let's begin. The Gemara is talking about chanufa, flattery. The Gemara quotes Rav Elazar, who says that any congregation that are flatterers are repulsive like a nida, because chenef is called kiadas chenef galmud, and in the villages of the sea they call a nida a galmud, because galmud is like from the word gemul, which means to be separated. So she's separated from her husband, so she's called a gemul, and gemul is galmud, and galmud is here linked to chenef. So therefore, chenef is like nida. Now it says further, any congregation that has chanuf in it, in the end it ends up being sent into exile. Here it says kiadas chenef galmud, and in a pasuk in Yeshayahu, it says V'yamarta bilvavech miyalad liyaseilu ani shekul v'galmuda gaila v'sura. So you see, galmuda is put together with gaila. Galmud is put together with exile. Now it says of Yirmiyah bar Abba, there are 4 groups that will never be mikabel p'nei Shechina. They will never be accepted before the Shechina, and that is the people who are makarers, leitzim, chanifim, flatterers, the liars, and those who speak lashon hara. Where do you see each of these 4? So the leitzim, the flatterers, because it says mashach yodei es leitzim, he withdraws his hand, he doesn't want to have anything to do with the mockers. Chanifim, because it says kilei lefonim chenef yavoy, those who are flatterers cannot come before him. Liars, because it says people who speak falsehood cannot stand before my eyes. And lashon hara, because it says kilo kel chavitz rasha ata lo yigor chara, you don't want bad, you don't want evil, and that is referring to lashon hara. Tzadikat Hashem lo yogor b'mgur chara, those who are bad or speak lashon hara cannot be within your abode. Now begin the 8th parak of the Masechta, Mashiach Muhammad, which discusses when Klal Yisrael went to war. So it says when they went to war, there was Mashiach Muhammad, that is a Kohen who's appointed for the task of making the announcements to the soldiers, and he would say to them, when he would speak to them, everything that he said was in Lashon HaKodesh B'dafka, specifically, because it says Vaya bekarevchem el hamilchama, when you draw close to go to war, v'nigash Kohen, and the Kohen should draw close. That refers to the Kohen Mashiach Muhammad. It says v'dabra la'am, v'dibra la'am, has to speak to them. That is always in Lashon HaKodesh, and he says to them, Shema Yisrael. He says, listen, Yisrael, atem krevam milchama levechem. You're going to war against your enemies. This is only referring to when you go to your enemies. When you're going to war against your brothers, which did happen, there was Yehuda against Shimon, it was Shimon against Binyamin. The Rashi refers specifically to the war of Pekach ben Rimalyahu, king of Yisrael, and a war with Achaz, king of Yehuda, and he defeated him. So over there, you don't be cruel to them, you have mercy on them. And everything I'm about to tell you does not apply to that. On them, you should have mercy. If they fall in your hands, have mercy on them, like it says. And that's what Rashi was referring to. It's pasuk in that they returned the captives. Those who were appointed got up, and they took the captives, everything with them. Min Hashal, they dressed them from the spoils. They dressed them, they put them on shoes. They fed them. They gave them to drink. He anointed them. They led them upon donkeys, anybody couldn't walk. They brought them to Yericha, the city of the dates, and they brought them and they went home. And so therefore they showed kindness to the other members of Klal Yisrael that were captured in a war. Now, when you're up against your enemies, then you should not show mercy. So there, if they fall into your hands, don't show mercy on them. Now he spoke further and he said, do not let your hearts be weakened, don't let them be soft, don't be afraid, don't be frightened. So al yerech levachem, don't let your heart be softened. That is, you shouldn't be afraid of the neighing of the horses of the war and the clashing of the swords against each other. Don't al tiro, that's from the knocking of the shields one against the other and from the screaming of the soldiers. Al techbazu, also a language of fear from the sound of the chariots. Al taratzu, that's from the screaming. Because Hashem is going with you. They are coming with the victorious aspects of flesh and blood, and you are coming with the victorious aspects of Kadosh Baruch Hu. What did the Pelishtim have? They came with their giant, with Goliath. What happened in the end? He was felled by a sword, and his entire people fell along with him. Ammon, they came with their leader, who the Mishnah calls Shovach, who refers to Hadarezer. In the end, he fell by the sword, and his entire people fell with him. But you were coming with Hashem, was going with you into the war, into the battle, and that is the camp of the Arin. Now begin the Gemara. The Gemara first wants an explanation as to how do you see from the words V'daber Elam that it has to be in Lashon Kodesh. So Gemara says because it's linked to Moshe Yidaber V'Lekim Yanenu B'Kol at Har Sinai. There it says Yidaber, here it says V'daber. Two words are linked to show that just like Moshe and HaKadosh Baruch Hu obviously speaking in Lashon Kodesh when the Seres Dibros were said, certainly this also has to be said in Lashon Kodesh because they both use the word V'daber. Now the Gemara wants to know, how do you know that it is the Kohen HaGadol or a type of Kohen Gadol, maybe just a regular Kohen? So the Gemara says no, because it says V'dibru HaShotrim, and also the police, the leaders, will also speak to them. So there's a link between the Shotrim and the Meshuach Muhammad and the Kohen, and therefore they have to be the same. Just like the Shotrim are appointed, so it has to be a Kohen who's appointed. So it can't just be a regular Kohen; it has to be someone appointed to this task. So the Gemara says, well, maybe it should be like Shotrim in another way. The Shotrim are under someone, so maybe this also has to be under someone, and therefore it shouldn't be the Kohen Gadol because the Kohen Gadol is not under anyone. So the Gemara says, no, the Kohen Gadol is under someone; he's under the king. So the Gemara says, no, but we're speaking in the Avoda. So the Gemara says, okay, so maybe it should be the Skan HaKohen. The Skan HaKohen is appointed, and he's also under the Kohen Gadol. Why don't you say that? So the Gemara says, no, the Skan does not count as appointed. At the time that he's not serving, he's not appointed. The function of the Skan, the Gemara quotes a brisa that it says this, in the name of Rabbi Chanina, Skan HaKahanim, the function of the Skan is that if the Kohen Gadol gets a psal on Yom Kippur, he takes the place. But he's not appointed until he actually takes his place. He's just on deck. He's waiting to be appointed. But at that point, he doesn't count as being appointed, and therefore can't be referring to him. The Gemara now asks, why does he begin his speech with the phrase Shema Yisrael? Why is he referenced Shema? So Rabbi Yechon says, name Hashem Eichai, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving the message, even if the only mitzvah you have is Kriya Shema, every morning and every evening, you will not fall into the hands of the enemy. Next, the Gemara quotes a brisa that says that he spoke to them twice. There were two speeches made. One is when they left the border, when they crossed the border, and the other is when they actually approached the war. And they crossed the border, what did he say? At that point, he sent home anybody who needed to be sent home. Those who had just gotten engaged, those who had just planted a vineyard, just built a house, and those who were afraid. When they actually approached the war itself, there he encouraged them and he said, don't be afraid. And he used four phrases. Al Yerach levavchem, al tiru, al tachbazu, al tartu. Those are the four types of fright that the enemy might cause them. Magifin, maritzin, tzvachin, v'reimsin. Four types of noise making that can be frightening. The Gemara now gets into the story of Goliath, who was the giant of the Pelishtim who challenged Klal Yisrael, and they waited. He asked for someone to fight him, and he challenged them. So the Gemara says he's called Goliath from the word Giloi, which means barefaced, which means he spoke with chutzpah in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said, choose a man for you, and he will come down to me. Ish refers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he was saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu won't even be able to fight with me, Chalila. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu therefore said, I'm going to make you fall in the hands of someone who is not even called a man, but is called son of man, like it says, V'David ben Ish Ephrasi. It says, Rabbi Meir, there were three places in his words that Goliath trapped himself. When he refers to him as Oisei Rasha, that evil man. One is where he said, Bar Lachamish v'yered Eli, choose a man and he will come down to me. That implies down on me, meaning that he's going to lose. Second time was when he said, if he could fight with me and strike me. And then he also said he's going to strike me. And the third one is when he said to David, am I a dog that you're coming against me with sticks? Now, David said to him, Ata ba alai b'cherev b'chanes b'chidon, and then he said, so that also implies that he's saying you're coming on me with sticks and weapons and swords. It also sounds like he's inviting to lose, but then he said, I'm coming to you. So that implied that he's going to come to him and defeat him. And he said, B'Shem Hashem Tzavaka, the name of God, Master of Legions of Yisrael and the wars of Yisrael, Asher Charafta, that you have degraded. Then it says, "V'yigash ha'polishti hashkem v'erev." This Pelishti would come every morning and every evening, says Rav Yechon, and he said that in order to disturb them from saying Kriya Shema in the morning and the evening. Now this went on for 40 days that he would come and he would scream his defiant challenge. Why 40 days? Rav Yechon says that's Keneged, the 40 days that the Torah was delayed, that they waited for the Torah at Har Sinai. That's what gave him the strength to go for 40 days. And it says, Vayetze ish ha beinayim mi'machanas Pelishtim. So a man of Beinayim came from Pelishtim. What does Beinayim mean? So Rav says that he is Mevuna Mikol Mum. He's cleaned of all wounds. He doesn't have any wounds, and he's very strong. Shmuel says Beinoni Shebachav. He's the middle one of his brothers, that they were 4 brothers, and he was the middle one. He was among the middle ones of them. The Be'er of Shila says that he was made like a binyan, he was made like a building. Rabbi Yechanan says it means he's the son of 100. The 100 are 100 menafim, 100 people who are mezana with his mother, and 1 actual father, because his mother was together in one night with 100 men. Only one of them was his father. The others are menafim. His name was Goliath. This also implies this. That's from the word migas, from a threshing floor, and that is that his mother was in a situation where everyone was threshing her, as it were, a reference to the znus that she was involved with many people. Then it says that we read the word ma'arachos, but it's spelled ma'aros. That's from the word hara, which is the beginning of the interaction between a man and a woman, is referred to as hara, to show that everyone was doing that hara with her. Now, the woman's name, his mother, was none other than Arpa from the story of Rus, and sometimes she's referred to as Arpa, and sometimes she's called Harafa, with a hey instead of an ayin. So what do these words mean? So Rav and Shmuel, one says Harafa is her real name. She's called Arpa because that refers to the back of the neck, to the oirif, to show that she turned her back on those that were mena'ef with her, and they had this interaction face to back like the animals do. And the other one says that her name was Arpa. She was called Harpa from the Lashon Harifus, which refers to threshing again, and the same implication of znus. Now it says as well, again referring to harfa as this language of threshing. Some give another source that says in Mishlei im tichtosh esavil b'machdesh b'soich harifois be'eli. So again, the word harifois there refers to threshing and refers to grain. The Gemara now speaks about the 4 sons of Arpa that we mentioned earlier. So the Gemara says that there were 4 sons born to Arpa in the city of Gas, and they all fell into the hands of David and his men. What are these 4? Rav Chizda says their names are Saf, Modoin, Golias, and Yishbi, and these are all mentioned in Sefer Shmuel, and they all fell into the hands of David's men at Noiv. Now this is based on the psukim that discuss when Arpa left Nami. So it says Vatishik Arpa l'chamoisa. Arpa kissed her mother-in-law. V'rus afkaba, but Rus stuck to her. Said Rav Yitzchak HaKadosh Baruch Hu said at that time, the one who kissed should come, and her children should fall into the hands of the one who stayed. Says Rava in the zchus of the 4 tears that she cried. It says twice Vatifkena, and that 2 times a tear from each eye, so it's 4 altogether. So in the zchus of those 4 tears, she had 4 very powerful sons. It says Vatisena Koilin Vatifkena. Now, then it says further, it says Chetz Chanisai, but we read it as Eitz Chanisai. So why is it like that? So Chetz is from the word Chatzi, to show that we haven't really discussed half the description of the power and the strength of that Rasha of Goliath. So from here you see that it's usher to talk about the praise of Rishayim. So Gemara says, then why are we discussing it at all? Why we didn't speak about half, but why are we speaking about any? So for that, the Gemara explains that's to show the praise of David HaMelech, that he was able to conquer him. We just want to show how strong a person was that he was able to defeat. And the Gemara now speaks about Shovach, who was the leader of Bnei Ammon, who was mentioned in the Mishnah. So the Gemara says in the Pasuk Sefer Shmuel, he's called Shovach, In the Pasuk of Vayami is called Shofach. What is his real name? It's Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. One says his name was Shovach. One says his name was Shofach. He was called Shovach because he was made like a Shovach, like a birdhouse. And one said his name was Shovach. He was called Shofach from the word Nishbach, to spill. Anyone who saw him out of great fear would pour, his heart would spill like a bottle. Now, on a similar note, that was a Machlokes Rav and Shmuel about the meaning of Psukim. We bring another one. It says Ashbasoi Kikever Pasuach in Sefer Yirmiyah, referring to the armies of Nebuchadnezzar. So Rav and Shmuel discuss it, or possibly Rav Ami and Rav Asi. One says that at the time that they would fire an arrow, it would make ashbasai, so it would make mounds and mounds of corpses. Says the Gemara, maybe that's because they're very well trained. No, that's why it says gibayrim. Ashbasai kever pesuach kulam gibayrim. They were all strong. Now, the other pshat is that when they used the restroom, they would make mountains of waste material because they had a lot of food. They ate a lot. Says the Gemara, maybe you'll think that's because they were sick. So the Gemara answers, no, it's because they were strong, because that's why it says kulam gibayrim. Says the Gemara, you see from the fact that we had havamina that the reason is because they're sick, that if somebody has a lot of waste material, it's a sign of internal disease. And says the Gemara, why do you need to know that? Because you better start looking for a cure. Now says the Gemara, another machlokes v'amin Ravasi. Pasuk says daga b'lev ish yaschena. So how do you read that? So Rav Ami and Ravasi, one says it's yaschena midaita, he should throw it away from his mind, and one says it should be read as yasichena lacherim, meaning he should